Hi, this is Justin from AC Hamilton in Preston. I'm here to compare the Genos 1 to the PSR-SX900. And the reason for this video is that for much of its life, or early life, the difference between them was like this much. So, you know, we had the Genos at roughly £4,000 and the SX900 under 2,000, less than half the price. So this massive difference in price, and quite rightly people were very attracted to the SX900. Great value for money, which it still is. But things have changed. So now in spring 2024, if we ever get spring, we've got this difference in price. Was there, it is now here. So it's much closer in price, in the difference between what you'll pay for an SX900 and a Genos 1. And I don't think people realise just how massive a difference between the two there actually is, which is hence the big difference in the first place. Even I didn't fully realise until I actually went into it. Now I did make a list, and it is rather big, of all the differences, and the more I look at it, the more differences I keep noticing, and I probably will miss differences, but there's just 10 ton of differences. So let's just go ahead and have a look at some of those differences. I think I divide this into two. So number one is the difference in the quality of the sound, which is probably the most important thing. And then number two, things that make life easier. So that would be like size of the screen, the size of the buttons, easier to press, having something that's easy to grab that does something that you want it to do. It just makes life easier. So let's first of all go into the quality of the sound. So when I did that, Matthew, who's doing the camera, said, "Wow, that's like night and day, the difference." To which, because my brain is weird, I went, "No, this is night and day." Right, so now why was it so different? And so when we go back to my giant list, one of the items was super articulation 2. There are 75 super articulation 2 sounds on Genos. There are 0 super articulation 2 sounds on SX900. Why does that matter? Well, super articulation 2 are pretty much, we think of them as being the top, the premium, the best quality of sounds. There's more going on with it. It's not just on and off. There's lots of inflections, human touches, subtleties, and this is why it sort of almost breathes with you when you play the saxophone on here. And it applies actually to this sound you're hearing, but it applies to so many sounds, just the same as what you've just heard. And the other thing is the aftertouch. So this doesn't have aftertouch, this has aftertouch, and that also affects, you know, how it breathes with you. So you know, you get that breath, control the breath. What happens? Nothing happens when you do that. It's just how hard you hit it. This is how hard you hit it, plus you get that extra sort of breath with it. So the super articulation 2 sound didn't exist on here, so I couldn't pick the same sound. I just picked the you know, the nearest sort of tenor sax to it. So this is a crucial part of the difference, but there's lots of other reasons why the sound. I mean, if we go back to my list here and we go back to the effects, and this is where it gets technical in the specification, but it's a technical reason, but the outcome is it just sounds a hell of a lot better. You know, when we go to all the effects and the different insertion effects, which affects the backing styles, and that just affects the richness of the sound. And of course, the other thing that affects the richness of the sound, and we've not got it here because whenever we do a video we're going direct into the camera, is that when you have it on normally people have the Genos with the Genos speakers, and that affects the richness because you've got the subwoofer and the 2 satellite speakers as opposed to the 2 speakers that are built in onto the SX900. So this affects the richness. The super articulation 2 sounds affect the richness of the sound, the aftertouch, all these effects. There's a lot going on into why this sounds a hell of a lot better than this. You know, and this is not to take away from how good the SX900 is. It's still a good keyboard. If we play the SX900 without hearing this, it sounds great. It's only when you do that comparison you really notice the difference. And of course there are reasons why, you know, you might need an SX900. Obviously the portability, the fact that the speakers are built in, if you're moving it around a lot, is going to be an advantage. And we do have some customers who have a Genos in the living room and an SX900 in a bag, so that they get the best of both worlds. But if it's staying in one place, the difference in sound is huge. Okay, let's just do another one. So we've got 60 shadow lead on here. Nearest thing on here, we've got something called shadowed guitar. Okay. Sound is just on and off really. Well, let's go clarinet. So I've got Romance Clarinet, Super Articulation 2. Of course that doesn't exist on here, so we've just had to pick something similar, or the nearest. So, you know, I'm not trying to make this sound better, it's just the way the sound is. You know, the Super Articulation 2 sounds, the effects are just on another planet really to the SX900. I mean, I might play a little bit different, but that's because I know there's aftertouch here. And I know there's certain things that happen that don't happen on here, so I may adjust the playing because I know those things happen. Of course, nothing happens there, so I might play it slightly differently, but it's not because I'm trying to make this one sound better, it's just because it's a better sound. So I want to talk about the difference in the keys. So I mean, obviously it's 76 keys, there's an extra octave there. And some people might say, well, I don't play piano, so why do I need the 76 keys? But it does matter. So even if you're a beginner, having that extra octave does make a difference, because on here we get to our split point, you might be on a piano and it's just not low enough, the sound isn't low enough, you can't go any lower. On here, because you've got that extra space, you can go get a lower piano or a higher violin just by moving your hand, whereas on here, if you had to do that, you'd have to change the octave, which means taking your hand off and pressing something. It's just easier having more keys. So, and also because you've got more space for a left hand for a split, it means I can almost play two hands down here as well as still having a sound here. So here I've got a gorgeous super articulation 2 mute trumpet. Here I've got guitar. You can even hear the aftertouch as well on your left hand part. Have the accompaniment as well. Almost like 3 keyboards really there. So let's talk about styles for a minute. Now, of course, there's lots of styles that exist on Genos that don't exist on SX900. Of course, even the ones that do exist on both will have better drums on the Genos, because we've got the full Revo drums as opposed to sort of partly Revo deriven. Let's not get too complicated with that. Look, they're just better. The drums are better. But there's a lot of these styles, great styles. For example, I'm in the retro pop category now. Let's just pick a style at random, 80s analog ballad. So this is a style that just simply one of many that doesn't exist on SX900. And of course, the other thing is, even the ones that do exist, all the effects on the drums, the bass, the guitars, everything, all of that impacts on the overall quality of sound. So have a quick listen to this one. This is a good example of why the sliders and knobs are useful. So we've got a situation where the backing is too loud for my right hand, and on the Genos I can just simply do this. It's just something to grab, because people often think the sliders and knobs make things more complicated. It's the opposite. That actually having something to grab is much easier than on the SX900. You know, to turn the backing down, we've got to go into a screen, press mixer, then bring the style down, put your finger on the slider or turn the wheel. It's just nowhere near as easy as just doing that. So that's just one tiny little example of why the sliders and the knobs makes life easier, not harder. So while we're on the subject of styles, because there's loads of factory styles that exist on Genos but not on SX900, and usually particularly good ones. Also, we've got the expansion packs. Now, we do have expansion packs on SX900, but there's a lot more and a lot higher standard of expansion packs on Genos. So one of my favourite expansion packs is called Genos version 2 Superior pack. And in fact, I did a video just on that one, I think, and there's some great styles on it. So again, none of these styles are on SX900. So there's another great example of a great style that's using all the super Revo drums, and it's a super articulation pan flute ballad sound. Again, one of the 75 super articulation 2 sounds that are on here don't exist on there. There's also a lot of super articulation 1 sounds, 100 or so, that are on here that are not on SX900. It's just really overwhelming just how much more there is when you really go into it. It's massive, but it's all about the quality, because this has still got 1,000 sounds on it. You know, it's not that we need 1,500. It's just that it's those extra ones. It's the quality of those extra sounds. It's the quality of those extra styles that are missing on here compared to here. And it's not that this is still a great keyboard. It's just the fact that they've come down so much. The gap between these two in price has come down so much that it's really making it almost a no-brainer. You know, we call them a no-brainer to go for Genos 1 over an SX900. So here's a good example of, I've got the exact same beat on both keyboards called Wonder 8-beat. I've reset both keyboards, so nothing's different. Everything's same going into the recording, or everything's flat. So there's no difference there. So now you'll hear difference in the backing, in the beat, and how good the backing style is on both. But also in the right hand, they've both picked a harmonica on the 1-touch setting. But of course the harmonica on the Genos is a super articulation 2 one, so you'll hear the difference there. So here's an example. I want to play a tune called Love Is In The Air, or as we say up north, Love Is In The Air. And we've got a specific style for it on Genos. It comes from the Genos 2 Superior pack. It doesn't exist on here, so we've just had to pick 70s Disco 1 as being the nearest one to it. So let's summarise this. I'll try and do this quickly. There's quite a lot of things. So number one, of course, is all about the quality of the sound, and that's because of the content of the sound, the higher quality voices, the higher quality styles, the higher quality drum kits, the higher quality effects. Then there's the actual physical sound through the speakers. Having the Genos speaker system makes it a much richer sound. Obviously we've got the longer keyboard, that makes a difference. The fact that it's aftertouch. The keys physically feel nicer, which is a bit weird because it's meant to be the same on the specification, but it may be because it's aftertouch or it's in a different case why they feel nicer, but they just do. What else have we got? Yes, the sliders and the knobs, which do not make it, and the second screen, of course, which do not make it more complicated, it makes it less complicated. The fact that the screen, of course, is so much bigger, that means it's much easier to touch the screen in a certain area. It's quite small sometimes, the little area you've got to press in the SX900. Then you've got the physical buttons. We've not mentioned this so far. So your right one, right two, right three, the fact that they're so big and there's smaller little buttons there to press. These are only small things, but all of it adds up. But the main thing, of course, is all about the quality of the sound, the expansion packs we were able to load in, which are higher quality, the styles, great styles on this that don't exist on the SX900. I've probably missed out loads of stuff, but it's just on another planet. So the truth is that the Genos was always on another planet. It's just that for a long time it was more than double the price of the SX900. So naturally, a lot of people, rightly so, looked at the SX900 and thought it was great value for money, which it was. But things have changed since then, and now we've got this massive shortening of the difference in the price between the two, and we can see it's just a no-brainer, really, if you're deciding between the two of them. So I hope you enjoyed that. Any questions, give us a call, and take care.